Welcome to Chamber Chat.
Welcome to Chamber Chat. I'm Donna Meyer, President of the St. Mary Parish Chamber of Commerce, and with me today is District Attorney Bo Duhe, running for re-election. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and participate in this forum and get my message out to the public.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, we're going to start off with a few questions,
Okay.
and we'll go from there. So you grew up in a judicial family, yet early on you chose another career. Can you share your story?
Well, I graduated from USL at the time, now UL, with a general business degree in 1984. And it was at that point I got into the banking industry in Lafayette. I was in the savings and loan industry, and at that period in time, there was a lot of oil and gas was not doing very well, savings and loans were not doing very well, but the type of work I did, I was in a little needed position, and so I was having a lot of success in that. But I knew to continue to be successful, I'd have to move on to another city, Atlanta, New Orleans, and I grew up on the Bayou Teche between New Iberia and St. I have Teche mud in my toes, and I wanted to do something else. And my father was a lawyer and ultimately a judge and retired as a federal Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals judge in Lafayette. And so I decided to go back to banking, from banking to law school to get into banking law. And then I got out, clerked for Judge Fleming here in the 60th Judicial District in St. Mary Parish. And Bernie Boudreaux, who was the DA at the time, offered me a position as an assistant DA. And I took that position and just became enthralled with criminal law, and more importantly, what we can do to help our community in that position.
Absolutely. Now for our second question, I'd like you to discuss your accomplishments during your tenure as DA.
Well, it's kind of hard to separate the two of them because I began in the office in 1993. I've been there almost 28 years. I have been the elected DA since 2015. But the accomplishments of our office over the years has been the ability to change with the times, change based upon what the public needs and what the wants are out there. As an example, one thing that we found over the years is that drugs tends to drive crime more than any other factor. And as a result of that, in 1995, the drug court program started as the first drug court program in the state of Louisiana here in St. Mary Parish. And it was a way to deal with people with addictions. And the theory being is if you cure the addict, you cure the criminal activity. And that has proven to be very successful. So it's the drug courts, it's the other kind of family services divisions where we're trying to change behavior of young people to keep them from getting into the system. It's the efforts we make in looking at these situations and finding a different approach, one that doesn't necessarily involve people going to jail, unless of course it's a violent crime or a sex offense or repeat offenders. It's trying to find out what the problem is, address it, have accountability, and hopefully move on without any further involvement in the criminal justice system.
Very good. You discussed earlier that your office's dedication to the victims of crime. So tell us more about that, your dedication from your office and your personal convictions.
Well, you know, throughout my career, I began in the misdemeanor department and I worked my way up into dealing with major felonies, armed robberies, homicides, and crimes that involved victims or the families of victims who, in actuality, when you're talking about homicide, are the victims of a crime also. And what we found is that you really, when you're dealing with victims, it's really the most traumatic experience in their life at that point in time of being a victim of a crime. And so you need to have a lot of empathy. You have to have a lot of involvement with the victims. We're fortunate to have 3 victims assistance coordinator in the 16th Judicial District, because of course we're a 3-parish district, St. Martin, Iberia, St. Mary. And in fact, the one that we have in Iberia is a St. Mary Parish resident in Cataline Theriault that you know. And Cataline is not only a statewide certified victims assistance, but a nationally certified victims assistance coordinator, and teaches people as far as internationally about how to become victims assistance coordinators. And what she does is she brings to the table her unique experiences of having her son murdered by his best friend and knowing how other victims feel.
Sure.
And so we're very, very pleased to have that, but it is probably the single most important thing we do is fight for victims, because a lot of times there's nobody else to fight for them, and I'm very proud of what my staff does in protecting victims' rights and hoping to get justice in their individual cases.
A very needed program, and I know they're doing a great job. So if you're reelected, are there changes that we can expect?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a firm believer that change will, if you're not changing and adapting to the times, then you're falling behind. And I think my career in the past and through my 6 years as DA has reflected that, and we will continue to evaluate that. You know, I've sat on behalf of the District Attorneys Association, the Criminal Justice Reinvestment Committee. I'm currently sitting on the committee that's studying the financing of the criminal justice system and what needs to be changed in that respect to have a more reliable stream of revenue to support the system while not relying on fluctuating revenue. And so my role is always to look at ways to change and to how to be better in what we do.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Okay, Bo, can you elaborate the role of the District Attorney's Office under your leadership and the programs that you support?
Well, first of all, there's only there's a certain amount of functions that the district attorney is required to do by Constitution. And when I go to different meetings or Rotary clubs, I generally ask people, what do you think we do? And of course, the response more often than not is, well, you put people in jail. And that's what I thought when I was first approached by Mr. Boudreau about working there. I didn't really know what a district attorney's office did, but it is far greater than that. And that is not the primary role or the role that we necessarily do. As an example is the mandated obligations we have is to prosecute crimes, and secondly, to represent public bodies, all of the different legal public entities within the 3 parishes. Examples are like parish governments, school boards, fire districts, hospital service districts, and a multitude of other boards, numbering approximately 50 in the 3 parish area. Now, a lot of those don't take a lot of time, and in some of those instances, those boards will hire their own independent attorney beyond what we do. But more importantly than that is the programs that we handle in an effort to assist them in the criminal justice system and to achieve the goals of thinking outside the box and trying to divert people and not make them get involved in a system and get caught up in a situation of constant incarceration when we're talking about nonviolent crimes and particularly first offenders. As an example, one thing we do is we handle the misdemeanor probation department for the courts. The misdemeanor probation is a court function, but they also either handle it themselves or they get the district attorney's office or another agency to handle that. And so we do that. We have a whole misdemeanor probation department that supervises probationers, make sure they're doing community service, abiding by the terms and conditions of their probation and successfully completing it, hopefully at that time. Second thing we found out is you have a lot of what we do in the district attorney's office is we deal with good people who make poor choices. And in those situations, what we try to do is find out what the problem is. And I earlier referenced the drug courts as an example. We have a pretrial diversion program where we try to get people, it's a front-end probationary period. The person is held accountable for whatever actions that occurred, be it restitution, maybe community service, maybe needs to have certain amount of treatment associated with that. And if they successfully complete that, then we don't file the charge. And the benefit to that is you have an accountability component, but you also have a situation where a person doesn't have a conviction on their record, and that can impede their ability to move forward in their life.
Right.
School education, those kind of things can have a lot of impediments if there's a criminal conviction on the record. And this allows, particularly in a situation, let's say a young person wants to go to nursing school or something like that, it doesn't impede their ability to do that.
Right.
And in many instances, those people go on to live successful, prosperous lives in their community. And so that's something that we look at and we use as an option to have less cases in the criminal justice system and better opportunities for the people who made some mistakes.
Yep.
So other things we do is we have a child support enforcement division. And that's a contract with the state of Louisiana where we enforce child support orders that have been issued by various courts of law or hearing officers in the 16th Judicial District. And what's good about this is it gets the money that is owed in those support enforcement orders into the hands of the custodial parent who uses those monies to support the child with the needs, clothing, food, schooling, and also the rents and things that need for a safe environment for the children. And that department on average per year collects about $22 million throughout the 3 parish district.
That's amazing.
That's a large amount that goes into our local economy and is spent on local businesses for the needs of the child and the household in that instance. So that's another good program that we have. Finally, a large program we have is our Family Services Division. What we do is we work in conjunction with the courts, we work in conjunction with the schools. When there's, for example, one of them is a prosecutor's early intervention program where if there's a problem that is identified in the school system by a teacher or some administrator, and that may be a child who's coming in and is not properly hygiene, not properly fed, clothed, whatever the case may be, and you can see as an educator that there's a problem at home. Generally, the school tries to address that issue with the parent, and if they're not getting any success, they come to the DA's office, and we're able to get involved, and we're able to generally get some involvement from the parent. And once that happens, we go and do home assessments, and we determine what the problem is. And as an example, a lot of times it's a situation where you have a single parent, let's say a mother that's raising 3 children, and they're under the stresses of just surviving day to day. And oftentimes they will succumb to their own addiction or alcohol, and then they kind of get lost in that for a while, and the children are not being properly cared of because of that situation.
Sure.
We will come in and we send a team of mental health professionals, of counselors and therapists to the residents and do an assessment. And then we'll get a plan together where we can provide services to the parent for their issues and services to the children to get them back on track, back into the school system and being successful. And that way they don't ultimately end up in the judicial system down the road, and they have a better chance of success. So that's something that we're very, very proud of. Recently, as an example, through the savings on the justice reinvestment legislation that went into effect, we received a $300,000 grant from the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement, where we have a very fast track with juvenile offenders. What happens is, as most people know who have children, if your child does something wrong, you have more chance at success at correcting behavior if something happens shortly thereafter. And what happens a lot of times is the system would take so long for that juvenile to get in court, it would be months and months later. With this program, within 4 working days of the event of whatever led that juvenile to have contact with law enforcement, we have the law enforcement report in our office, and within 14 days after the team of therapists and counselors go out, we have a plan in effect to treat that behavior, and with the consent of the parents and the child, we implement that plan and we start correcting the behavior at that point. And that has shown a pretty good track record of success. And we think that's one of those things, like a drug court, that can help change behavior.
Yeah.
Because that's the key. We want to change behavior and give our parents, our children, and our community the best opportunities to be successful and to avoid getting involved in the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. Wow, y'all really are involved in a lot of things. They're all good. So with the time remaining, convince our listeners on why they should vote for you, Bo Duhe.
Well, why they should vote for me, number one is I have 28 years, or soon to be 28 years of experience being in the district attorney's office. I've had almost 6 years, this will be my 6th year as your elected DA. I have the experience, as I've explained earlier, with my programs that I support and that I continue to develop and to tweak into better and better programs, number one. Number two, I think I would encourage anybody to go out and maybe find someone, a lawyer or someone that has interacted with me as the DA to get their opinion of that interaction. And I strongly believe what you will find is people say that I'm accessible, I listen, I'm empathetic to the situation, and I'm always striving to make sure that justice is done in a fair and impartial manner. And I think those qualities of me personally is what makes me successful as a DA and would make me successful as the DA for the next 6 years, with the support that I'm humbly asking all of the citizens of the 60th Judicial District.
Well, that's it for Chamber Chat. I want to thank you, Bo Duhe, for being on our show today, and good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.